of fatigue was like, wow, I'm exhausted. No wonder. No, I'm not. But it's a lot when you hear it out of someone's mouth.
Well, now there's high expectations, certainly.
Yeah. Well, it's such an honor to be here and a pleasure. And as you all know, we're diehard BYU fans, yet we have our youngest son just transferred up to the U last year. We call him the boy who shall not be named, but he comes home and he still lives at home, and we do still feed him and house him, even though he's up at the U. But we just are huge fans of Utah and everything Utah offers. How would you like me to start? Would you like me to kind of tell my story, or what would you like?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, and feel free to dive into any prepared remarks. I'm going to turn off my video so everybody can see you and not me.
Thanks a lot for leaving me, but okay, that's okay. I'm ready. It is always awkward to talk about myself, and I'm sure I chose the wrong profession because of that. But the whole reason I chose this profession is to serve and to give back. And I've learned a lot, and learned that the only way for me to have a significant voice is to hold a vote. And let me just tell you a little bit. First of all, I just love that we're talking about growing moral and ethical leadership, because I do pride myself on that. I often will tell people I don't make a decision without coming in my office and and I usually sleep on it, but taking a few minutes or a night or time to really think about it and follow my gut and try and do what is best for all the citizens of Provo. Like was stated earlier, I was born and raised in Provo. Our family was a unique situation. We weren't the typical Provo family. When you think of a Provo family, I was born into a family of 7 children, and my dad was abusive and arrested, and we were members, and there was just a lot that you would never think of when you think of a girl born and raised in Provo. I was the kid that was on free and reduced lunch. Bless my mom's heart. She worked the graveyard shift in the newborn nursery at Utah Valley to provide for us. But because of that, we all had to work hard. Everyone in my family is a hard worker. And by about age 12, we were expected to contribute to the family. I remember my mom talking to us and saying she drove a Chevy Citation. We had one car, and she needed new snow tires. And so she asked all of us if we could just give whatever we had. And I was 12, and I started knocking neighbors' doors and asking if I could clean their houses or tend their kids or read to their children or help with school. But like was stated in the introduction, so many people answered the call and made me who I am today. I often tell the story that in a million years, in fact, if my mom were alive, she'd be sobbing, because she would never believe that I am sitting in the seat I'm in right now, because of our situation and the unique situation we were being raised in Provo. I used to think everyone's dad was either a BYU professor or a doctor, because that's kind of how all my friends and how it felt. And I remember telling my first big lie in Provo City on Center Street. I was at Provo High. I went to Dixon Middle School and Provo High, and I needed more money. I couldn't keep babysitting for the BYU basketball games for $1 an hour. I needed to help more. So I got out of school at Provo High and walked down University Avenue and came onto Center Street and started looking in the windows for who was hiring. And I walked into a little deli shop that had the sign in their window and talked to them and said, I can work every day after school at 4 o'clock. I just need enough time to walk down from Provo High. And I was not 16. This is where the lie comes in, but I'm super tall and I look older than I I matured really fast when I was younger. So I was only 15, but I got the job and was able to have a real job to be able to help my family. I sit in my office, even as I sit here right now, I can look out and see that store. And it's just so crazy to me that I have the privilege and honor of serving this community in this capacity after the long road to get here. I am sorry. And so that's another thing, right? When you're the first woman mayor, you cry. And I came into this office, and I remember the first time I came in my office and kind of teared up, and my directors were all men, and they were just running around. The mayor's crying, what do we do? And yeah, but they have learned that sometimes I get a little sensitive about stuff. Anyways, I was a sophomore at Provo High School, and we took a field trip across the street to BYU, and I just loved it, and came back and went and talked to my counselor and said, what does it take to get into that university? My mother had no means to pay for me to go to college, and we all knew that, and we all went to college and paid our own way. And they told me the path forward, and I went to work, and I was able to attend BYU on an academic scholarship. And I was so excited. I started summer semester, and all my friends were on these trips and doing all these gap year things that were so unheard of to me. And I went right to BYU and loved it, and grateful for that, because it's where I met my husband. And I did not get married until I was a little older, because my mom, being a single mom, always just pounded in our heads, you need to get an education. You need to be able to fend for yourself. You need to be able to take care of yourself and your children if you should need to. So that was always the rule with her. We always had to get to our senior year, and then maybe we could think about getting married. But thank heavens for her lessons of work ethic and teaching me that women can do anything. I mean, she was the mom that would pull. She worked 7 to 7 when she was working the graveyard shift, and she would pull in the driveway of our house, and I would be running out the door with my younger brother, and we'd be running to the bus stop, and she would pass through the car window, a Tab and a Pop-Tart. And Tab was a long time ago, and we would grab those and run to the bus stop, and all the other kids had their moms standing around walking them to the bus stop. And I just used to think they're such babies. They have to have their moms walk them to the bus stop. And yet the minute we got on the bus, everyone wanted a drink of our Tab and a bite of our Pop-Tart. Anyways, because of everything that I was offered in Provo when I was being raised here, and the church and the gospel and how it changed our lives, I just have always had this desire to serve, and it's been in me. I was serving when I was anywhere I could serve, in middle school and in high school, and then at BYU, I found myself there. As I got married and we moved back to Philadelphia, my husband said, and I've never not worked. And he said, you don't have to work. And I'm like, what? Yes, I do. I am going to go volunteer at the Liberty Bell. And I've always felt this urge to serve and give back in some capacity. My big push to get into politics, because the civility, the ethics, everything goes against everything that I have watched women and heard from women to do, is to jump into the arena, right? We're afraid to. We feel underqualified. We don't like being vulnerable. When you jump into the political arena, you are vulnerable. Not only you, but your husband's vulnerable. Your children become vulnerable. You have to be brave, and you have to be okay with mistruths being said about you. My children, I just loved my children so much, and where they went, I went. I coached soccer, and by the way, the athleticism, if you're thinking, wow, was she an athlete? No to that for sure. nothing. It's so embarrassing because my kids are super athletic and have done wonderful. All 5 of our kids have gone to college on athletic scholarships, which we're forever grateful for, but they do not get their athleticism from their mom. It is 100% from their dad. I'm tall. I'm about I say 5'11". My husband always says, be honest and say 5'10". But, and when I'm filling out the weight things, I always say 6 feet to add an extra 5 pounds. But I gave them their height. I'll claim that. And I know how to cook good and big and fast. And, but they definitely got all their athleticism from their dad. I always tell them they got their brain from their mom because I'm a book nerd and was in the library. I introduced the library to my husband when he was a senior and I was a freshman. So they're fun kids and have loved their experiences at BYU, graduating in statistics and analytics, and just loved it. But anyways, where my kids went, I went, and I was always a volunteer. And if I heard in the community that we needed a park, then fine, great. Why not? Let's get a park. I will go out and fundraise. And I remember my husband saying one time, can you ever stop working for free? Because I had fallen into that mode because I wanted to serve the community. Our goal was to get back here to Provo when our oldest child was 12, and we were able to do that. And we have not left, and we never plan to leave. We love our community. I feel so responsible for my 3 widows that are living around me, and just love the community. The reason I jumped into where my kids were is because my kids were fine. And I say that often. They had a mother that adored them, a father that adored them. We had the gospel. We had, by no means were we wealthy or anything like that, but we were happy. And I didn't worry about my kids. Where my heart was for the kids that were like me growing up, that were trying so hard to fit in and so hard to blend. We didn't want to stick out when me and my siblings, but yet we came from a struggling home, and we were the free and reduced lunch kids. And so my heart tended to go to that. I could spot them a mile away, and I felt a responsibility to help them. And the capacities and avenues I found myself in were PTA presidents and on boards and commissions, and fighting on their behalf because they couldn't. Another passion was my husband was an immigrant and came to America when his parents were done being mission presidents. They came to America when he was 8. And he didn't get any help with English as a second language for him. He was just thrown into the school system. And so my passion was there to help those kids. And into the school system I went and made some great progress. Interesting enough is when I was at Tim View, where my kids went, which I'm a Provo High Bulldog through and through, and they know it. But they were at Tim View, so I went where they went. My oldest daughter was going to be a junior in high school and needed to take the ACT. And so I was looking around for prep classes, and the prep class that I could find was at BYU. And it was fairly expensive at the time, and you had to buy the book and pay this fee. And so I had this great idea that, I believe it should be every student's right in the state of Utah to fill out a college application, regardless of where you come from, what you look like, what language you speak, but to be able to put a number in that little line. And if you decide to go to college, great. If you don't, great. If you do it 10 years after high school, at least you will have a number for that line. So I went to work on that. I called my girlfriend that's a lawyer, and every time I call her, she just is like, oh my gosh, what's your big idea now? But we went to work, and I kind of mapped out my plan. And the first step was to get in front of the Board of Education and sell my idea and try and get support and funding in some capacity. And I went to the school board meeting, and I was so excited. I thought, this is such a fabulous idea. I've already taught to the book the people that do the book and have 50 books donated for the ACT prep. And I had my curriculum done. I had reached out to, had written the BYU curriculum, had all my ducks in a row, went to the school board meeting, stood up, said my name and my address, got my 3 minutes, sat down, and silence. Not a word. And I sat there through that meeting and thought, feeling deflated, and thought, okay, I'm learning, right? Those 7 people up on that dais, that is where I need to be. I need to get myself in that position where I have a voice and a vote so that I can make some of these changes. And so that's kind of where it all started. I went to work on that. I went to work on the ACT. I did the ACT prep class at Timpview. I dedicated endless Saturdays of giving the pre-test and then doing the class and then leading right up to the ACT. I did a fall and a spring ACT free prep class. Got it funded and did it for all the years when my kids were all at Timpview. And funny side note, the only student I ever had to kick out of the class was my own son, Corbin, but all the other students were fabulous. And I had volunteers in there that spoke Mandarin Chinese and Spanish and Portuguese, taking care of all of the different diverse groups of kids that would never have a chance to take an ACT prep class. And as you know, many of you, I'm sure you know right now, we've rolled enough and I've pushed enough. Now every junior in the state of Utah takes the ACT class for free their junior year. And that was unheard of when I started down this journey and path. And so that was my really first big win of feeling like I did it and I had accomplished something for the greater good in the state of Utah. So, and then my second, I went after the school board seat and had to unseat an incumbent, which is never easy if you know politics, but landed that seat. And 2 years into my 4-year term, they elected me board president of public education, sat on state boards, and the story just rolls and rolls from there. And the mayor piece is interesting. So now we're finally getting to the mayor piece. And I apologize. If you need to cut me off, cut me off. But I had and this is usually how politics is, right? As women, we feel like we're not qualified or we need to check all these boxes before we can throw ourselves into an arena of politics. And so the Provo City mayor seat was wide open. And everyone started coming at me saying, you should run. And I was in my second term, my 6th year in the school board and on multiple state committees. I'd been over to China, to Beijing, to focus on getting our dual immersion programs in Provo, which we are so proud of that we were able to land. But I just had this little nudge inside me that, I should at least look into it and see. So I came down to the city and went and met with the recorder and said, okay, I need all the information you've got, the voting demographics, how many women have run, what the turnouts were, just trying to pull all my information because I'm a big believer in research. And she was so helpful, but really said, can you come out in the hall? And I went out in the hall. And again, I'm super tall. If I were standing, you'd be like, wow, she's tall. And this little woman was petite and just said, Michelle, she whispered, and I had to bend way down. And she said, we've never had a woman mayor before in the city of Provo. And I just was really just shocked. And so I thought, okay, and I almost didn't believe it. So I walked out. Any of you that have been into my office, there's a wall of mayors that is fantastic from 1947 all the way up. And there was 44 wonderful male mayors, and I read their names and looked at them all and just had this, it's that horrible nudge that I just can relate it to as a mom we get with our kids sometimes, that you need to at least try. And so I went home and talked to my family and said, I've got this crazy idea, but if you're against it, I'm not going to do it because managing the third largest city in the state, being a full-time mayor, which is a strong mayor form of government, which there's only a few of us in the state of Utah. It's ran like the federal government. I have the veto power, and I have 7 council members there. They do policy. I'm the administrative side. Explained it to my family and said, if you don't want me to do it, I won't. And they just said, Mom, of course you've got to do it. So we went to work, and I'm not kidding. It was a full year of staying completely engaged with my position on the school board and running a mayoral campaign. With that said, when I won, I still can't, like I said at the beginning, it's such an honor and privilege to be in this seat. I still can't believe I won, and it's been 4 years. There's no reasoning other than it was meant for me. I'm supposed to be the mayor during a horrible pandemic and a shooting in Provo, losing an officer, all these crazy things that have happened. As hard as it's been, I just know I'm supposed to be here. Anyways, that's kind of the long of the short of what got me to this seat. And it's really not me. It's all the people I've surrounded myself with. I remember my first day. It was a unique election because Congressman Curtis had just won his seat the night that I won the mayoral seat. And I went down and talked to him and said, can we do this transition from November, I think it was like the 7th back then, to January 4th? And he said, oh no, there's no transition. I'm flying out. I have to vote on the floor. And so it really was a unique situation. I came to work the next Monday, and it was drinking out of the fire hose, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And really put my heart and soul into it. And I do every single day. I give it everything I've got. A couple of quick little side notes, because don't want you to think it's all rosy. I never want anyone to think that I've got this handled, because I don't. And it's every day a challenge, but also a positive experience in the end. Usually I was here like day 4, and I was on the phone trying to negotiate and navigate some things that were left for me to work out. And I heard one of the employees in the office, and again, it's all men, remember, and the directors were all men. And I heard him say, no, she is great to work for. She is, but she works fast, and you better come to work ready to work, and you better keep up. And I thought, wow, if that's the worst thing they can say about me, then I'll take it. And the other piece, just to let you know the realistic side, I'll never forget, I was up on the dais in a city council meeting. It was hitting 10:30 at night. I had been there since 6:30 in the morning. I got a text from one of my kids saying, Mom, this is the stupidest, dumbest job you've ever had. And I was it kind of knocked the wind out of me. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? And he said, ever since you've been mayor, the fridge has never been full. We're always low on milk. And I just thought, okay, I know that seems small and insignificant to a lot of you, but to our family, food is a big deal. And I had to sit back and evaluate myself, self-evaluate, and realize that I was failing. I had come so heavy and hard into this job. I was failing my family. And they were so kind and positive and willing to put up until my youngest son, who just had it, let me know. And it was perfect, because it forced me to reel myself back in and to find some balance, which if you've been in a political office, the balance piece is the trickiest piece. So I am not perfect by a long stretch. I make mistakes every day. But I'm willing to work, and I'm a hard worker, and I'm not afraid of challenges. I believe in what I do, and that's what keeps me going. Is there anything you'd like me to touch on?
Thanks, Mayor Kaufusi. We actually have quite a few questions already. If
okay.
You mind jumping into those, and that'll give us something to focus on here. But first of all, what a inspiring lady you are, of volunteerism, of putting your shoes on and going to work. Thank you for sharing your story with us. So let's see, I'm just going to go down the timeline and read what people are saying here. The first one is interactions you have with other city mayors and the governor as you plan to make decisions that affect the city and the state. Sometimes those interactions and the agendas that each have might clash. How do you go about making choices with the local versus broader state, and the trade-offs and the consequences with each as you work with other mayors or state leaders?
So that's a great question, and it's not only state and local, but federal. I sit on federal committees as well. And so it is every level of government you are tapping into when you're the mayor of this big of a city. It's really fascinating because I have learned to agree to disagree. And I love working with men, and I love working with women. The beauty of the men I interact with are so great because we can be behind a closed door, and I was just with a senator actually this morning, and he was talking about some crazy bill he was going to push. And I said, oh, I'm going to push back against that. And we can agree. And we went at it. And in fact, my executive assistant's like, is everything okay in there? But the best part is we can agree to disagree. And then we hug on the way out. And it was so good seeing you. But you have to be able to work with everybody. It's all about relationships. If I could honestly, connection and relationships in politics matters. It's the meeting before the meeting or the meeting after the meeting. It's the side conversations. Relationships matter. And if you're going to have any success in the political world, you have to be willing to bend and be flexible. I knew this right out of the gate, and I immediately started what I call the Mayor's Huddle, where I host the mayors every month. And it has paid back tenfold as far as wonderful relationships with the state. Again, a lot of them, when I have to cross party lines, we can agree to disagree, but at least they know where I stand. And I'll tell you something that's interesting. Every time I have a meeting with an elected official, my office, they try and manage my calendar because they always tell me I overwork. Who can overwork? But they'll always push my time. And I always push back because I always say I need the first 30 minutes to get to know them and to make a connection. And then the last 30 minutes for business, because that's really what it's all about. And I hear this in my mind a lot. Politics makes for strange bedfellows, but it really does. You cross the lines, you do whatever you have to. And at the end of the day, what is best for the community is what we do. And I might be in my mind 100% against it, but if it's the way we're going and it's the right way and it's what's best for the over community, then we jump on and we go.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. The next question is, what do you see as the current biggest local issue you want to address?
So the biggest issue coming our way besides, so Provo has specific issues that I'm handling. A lot of them are infrastructure, but statewide is our population boom that's coming. We have to be prepared. We have to be ready. They're going to come with or without us, right? They're coming. So my forward thinking and my, every time I talk about projects, I call them legacy projects or 30-year out projects, because I don't want to look back and say, oh, I should never have built that new sewer system. I should have let us get to capacity. No, I'll be the sewer mayor. I need to do these things in order to prepare for the next 30 years and for the mayors to follow. I want to set them up for success. And it's population, it's a housing affordability. We've got to figure that out. Those are probably the top priorities in my mind. Active transportation, we're getting a good grip on that in Provo with our UVX and our bike lanes. We're really an active transportation community with our universities. But yeah, I would say the growth that's coming and the infrastructure that needs to be in the ground, which is not pretty, but is super expensive and the most necessary thing we need in the city.
Okay, we'll see if that nickname sticks, the sewer mayor.
I have owned that from the beginning when I went out to the state and got us our new sewer system and phasing it in, and we're working on it right now. I mean, everyone's the best mayor until everyone wakes up and can't flush their toilets or it backs up, then you're the worst mayor. So that's my job, is to take care of your basic needs.
Well, certainly the growth in the state is on a lot of people's minds. This might tie into what you've said, but there might be another challenge you've had. The next question is, what has been your hardest challenge so far?
The hardest challenge, besides the legal. So when I became mayor, it was looking good, and you know, I never was comfortable with it, but my campaign and my family were like, Mom, you're probably going to win this thing. I made a list of all my weaknesses. If I were to be mayor, where am I lacking? And I made that list. I looked at it again, reordered it, renumbered it, spent a couple more days, renumbered it. My number one was the legal component. I knew it was a weakness for me, and that's a huge piece of politics. So I went after my deputy mayor. He's a BYU grad from the BYU Law School and was working back at the Department of Defense in DC, and longtime friend. Again, it's all about relationships. And begged him to come and be my deputy mayor and asked him to basically work for free compared to what I was making. But I told him how much the community needed him, how much I needed him, and I was able to check that box. He's been the most amazing deputy mayor, and his job is to push back on every decision I make. Even if he doesn't want to, that's his job, is to push back. And that was definitely one of my weaknesses that now has kind of become a strength.
I can imagine you'd be hard to say no to. So the next question, during your time as mayor, this is kind of the opposite. What has been your biggest accomplishment?
Oh my word. There's a couple accomplishments that I'm so proud of. Again, if you don't understand government, you probably think, really? You are so, but I'm getting goosebumps thinking about them. That's how pathetic this is, right? When I became mayor, the first thing I did is I met with all my directors, because in a strong form of government, they're all direct reports, so they can be fired at the drop of a hat, right? I have the say so, which is unsettling to them. So I wanted to bring them in, get to know them, and I told them each, I said, so if there was one thing you could have done, and I'm not your boss and money's not an issue, what do the citizens need? What was really needed in the city? And as I made my list after meeting with each one, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and fight for some of these things. I actually, when I went out for the new public safety building, because our police are at about 125, right, 120-ish officers right now, and they're living in a building that was built for 40. There's only 2 working bathrooms. It's a nightmare. It's embarrassing. It's not who Provo is. So when I decided to go to bat for the public safety, I just did a few things. I came in my office, like I told you, and I made some calls to a couple senators, congressmen, the senators back in DC, plus the local, plus the state, plus the school board president. Called a lot of people and said, if you were me, what would you do? Every single one of them said, do not go out for this, to get a new public safety building right now. You just won. It's political suicide. And I thought, I sat and said, this was another crying moment, right? I'm on my couch. I've got to go into a public meeting and let them know, make the decision that I'm going out to get a new public safety building on behalf, and a couple of new fire stations on behalf of the city employees and new city hall. And the Chief Miguel and Chief Ferguson came in the office, and they're like, the mayor is crying and she needs to get down to that meeting and make her decision. And I just sat on my couch, and they got a box of tissues, and it was like 4 or 5 men just hovering. It was so hilarious, not knowing what to do. And I'm just like, just give me a minute, you guys. And I just stood up and thought, I don't care if I go down in flames. I'm swinging for the fences. I want my employees and my fire and police to know that I at least tried. And we did, and I'm just beyond excited to announce that we're in phase 2 of our new sewer system. We cut the ribbon on Fire Station 2 last year on 9/11. We will move into our new city hall, and our police will move into a new public safety building that one floor is more square footage than what they're in right now. And Fire Station 1 will be rebuilt in the next 2 years. And our new airport that everyone told me not to do. I mean, it's just like I told you, I'm getting goosebumps. But again, it's not for me; it's for the community, because all ships rise when I fight for the community, and we're going to be so much better. I mean, we're going to be able to better serve the community by doing these things, and it's just an exciting time to have some wins like that. And I wanted the employees to know that, if I fail, at least they know I tried.
So we're coming up to the end of our time here. It's almost 1:15. We have a lot more questions, but I'm going to pick one out because in the BYU Management Society, we promote moral and ethical leadership. That's our goal. That's our purpose. And so one of the questions I'm picking out here is, what has been the biggest ethical issue you have faced in this role?
So a lot of it was breaking down the glass ceiling of having a woman in office. When you step into this position, and it's only been men, and they have been in their offices for 20 years with the door shut, and they come out and go to lunch, and they come back and shut their door, and then you come in with this great idea that we're going to collaborate, and they look at you like you're crazy, and then they don't do it, and then you have to threaten to take the doors off the hinges in the whole city unless we start coming out and talking. That was a little bit of a challenge. I don't think they knew what to do with me. The other piece was the ethical piece is just what's gone on in the past year with social justice. People look at me and they think, oh, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, blah, blah, blah. They have no idea the background, the history, that I married an immigrant. My children are half Tongan and half Caucasian. But boy, I learned a lot. I got just blasted last year with our friends from Black Lives Matter, and they taught me so much. And our Latinos in Action, and I have become a better mayor because of it. The ethics that we had all gotten in the rhythm of just moving forward, it made us all push the brake and say, all right, let's step back and look at ourselves and see how we can do better. So those probably being the first woman mayor, and then trying to this diversity to be more sensitive and figure out where we can improve.
Thank you. So we'll forego the rest of the questions here, but there are a lot of comments. Thank you for sharing your story. Summer's excited about the new airport. I know my father-in-law was looking at that terminal the other day and saying, hey, we're going to be able to get close. I just moved.
Oh, you just wait. You just wait. I've got some major announcements that as soon as we finish up some contracts, it's going to be amazing. And the new airport is gorgeous. The whole goal is 20 minutes from car to pillow. And I keep using that slogan with my staff. It's going to be so fabulous.
We're excited. And again, thank you for being with us. You said you got an academic scholarship to go to BYU. Normally, we give our speakers gifts at the end of their visit with us, and we're not there to give it to you in person, but we'll be mailing it to you. And the gift we'd like to give you is that we'll be giving a scholarship in your name. And these scholarships are needs-based and based on community service. So hopefully we'll be able to get it to the next Mayor Kaufusi.
That's exactly what mine was. And so that's so near and dear to my heart. That's what mine was all about. I just needed a little bit of a win to start my journey. So thank you for doing that.
You bet. And just before we end here, I'll do a random number generator for those who have commented. The winner is Ray Isaacson. Ray, if you'll send me a direct message with a shipping address, I'll get your award to you. It's BYU Management Society packing cubes. And I hear they're all the rage these days. It's the hottest thing in travel. And I assume everybody's got a summer vacation plan coming up. Again, Mayor Kaufusi, thank you so much for being with us. And thanks to the rest of you for for joining us today. That will conclude our last webinar before our summer break. And hopefully we'll be able to get together in person for luncheons back in Salt Lake starting in the fall. But until then, have a great summer, everybody. And again, Mayor Kaufusi, thank you for your time.
Thank you.